Good morning, everyone. I wanted today to talk about the review or a review of Alice in Borderlands Season 3 because I was very disappointed by that season. And honestly, it kind of sparks this, topic of when to know when to quit, and also maybe the idea of consumerism. Maybe that's a little bit far-fetched, but yeah, I think it's kind of connected. You see, this season 3, I loved season 1 and season 2, and I kind of felt like they kind of wrapped it up, and there was in actuality no need for a season 3 in a way. Or at least some of the questions could have been kind of wrapped up in season 2. But yeah, this season was really lackluster in terms of storytelling, delivery of the protagonists, and yeah, overall it wasn't that great. So usually, I don't want to spoiler or put any spoilers in my reviews, but because I felt this season was not that great, I will probably spoiler something. So take that with a grain of salt. If you want to watch season 3 of Alice in Borderland, you have 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yeah. That was your time to leave, but if you're still here, all right, you have been warned. So, season 3. If you are aware of Alice in Borderlands, or if you're not, let me just recap it really quick. It is, these people are in the, something happens in their life where they almost die, and then they are in Borderlands where they have to kind of play these games and to survive, and then it basically determines if you actually die or if you can go back into the real world. And these games, especially in season 1 and in season 2 as well, are really good and intense and very entertaining, and more importantly, understandable. In season 3, our main protagonist, Arisu, which is, as far as I understand, Japanese for Alice, and his wife, whose name I forgot, is actually the translation for rabbit, so it kind of connects to Alice in Wonderland, obviously. They have, in season 2, basically won all of the games in Borderlands. And for some reason, or you have this doctor, this professor, and they have a good life and everything is well. And they have this professor, they meet him, and he belongs to like this research that is kind of interviewing all of the people from the previous seasons because they noticed some similarity in memory of those people, although they are not connected. So he kind of makes the connection that there is something going on when you are in a near-death situation. And he comes along this cult, and one of the antagonists or characters of season 2, who I actually didn't remember, and that person kind of lures in all of the people back into Borderlands because he's bored in the Borderlands. He decided to stay in the Borderlands, which was part of season 2, where when you won, you were able to decide to either go back to the real life or stay in those Borderlands and kind of continue playing the games. And he gets a little bit bored and lures in new players, and he especially targets Arisu because he was a really, really good player. So he kind of convinces that professor to bring Arisu's wife into the Borderlands in order to lure him or Arisu into the Borderlands, which sounds really complicated. It is a good method, but I feel like it feels complicated a little bit. So all of them are in the Borderlands. Arisu wants to save his wife, goes into the Borderlands and looks for her, right? And first and foremost, I have to say, all of the games, to confirm, I kind of watched other reviews. Most of the reviews that I watched said like the games were really cool. I personally felt like the games were terrible. Maybe not terrible is maybe the wrong word, but overly complicated. Because I noticed that I was zoning out so much during the game. That's maybe a testament to me not being that smart, or I don't know. While I understood the games, it was just too complicated to follow the edit and to follow the overall pacing of the series. It is maybe easier to kind of follow along if you play it yourself, but if you're just watching other people play a game and the game is overly complicated, or maybe it wasn't that great told or edited, I was zoning out so much during the games that I really, I just didn't watch. I watched it, but I was like, okay, this is, they're chasing each other, or they're doing this over 1.5 episodes. Okay, this is just the game. I don't really need to watch this because, I can't follow along, and it's not detriment to the story because now they're just playing the game, and what's important is who is winning and who's dying at the end, With previous games in season 1 and 2, I was more like entertained and connected to the game and was more invested in following along the game. It's the same thing like in season 3. You basically could just zone out during the games because in the end it would just be important, and I'm oversimplifying here. It would be just important who dies and who lives at the end. So, but you were more invested in watching the whole game play out, basically. In season 3, as I said, it was way too complicated, or at least for me. Again, not the game per se was complicated, but it was not as great to follow along that storyline, So that was the first thing that I really didn't like about season 3. The next part that I didn't like as well is this professor and Arisu's wife. So there is this point in the series. So they meet up and Arisu is really mad at the professor because obviously he basically kidnapped, she came to the Borderlands basically, as far as I understand, by her own will because he somewhat convinced her, but in a really twisted way. So Arisu, without too much information, is just mad at that professor because he brought her and basically him to the Borderlands and put them at risk for his personal gain. So he's mad at the professor. In my opinion, rightfully so. No matter what the reason might be, I feel like if your wife and husband, you kind of talk it out first before you bring yourself into a life-endangering situation. So he's obviously mad at the professor and he attacks the professor and is angry at him. She puts herself in between them, protects the professor and is mad at Arisu and says, hey, you cannot attack him, he saved me. And I'm sitting there, he saved you after bringing you in a life and death situation. So I feel like if someone brings you to a life and death situation, and that person saves you in that situation that he brought you in, you shouldn't be thankful for that person, but she is, and she protects him, and she says like, oh, without him I wouldn't be alive. And I'm sitting there and I think Arisu thinks the same. Yeah, but he wouldn't have needed to save you if he wouldn't have brought you into this situation. So why are you protecting him and are now mad at me? So that was something where I was like, that was really twisted, and I felt the whole storyline between her and the professor was really weird and kind of misplaced. So that I didn't like that at all. And speaking of characters, all of the characters inside the story that also what brought to Borderlands, while they were interesting and really cool in a way, they weren't fleshed out at all. This series only had 6-7 episodes, so not 10 like usually. So you didn't have the time, or you would have time if they wouldn't have spent so much unnecessary time on the games that were so complicated that they need to flesh them out so you could understand them. And I feel like if the games were a little bit easier to understand or to follow along, they wouldn't have needed 1.5 episode per game, and then would have time to kind of flesh out the storylines of all of the other characters. So that was a little bit lackluster. And another spoiler, in the end, they, just like in Squid Game, and also Squid Game, spoiler for Squid Game, be warned, in Squid Game, in the end, they actually tease a Squid Game spin-off series in LA, and they do the same thing here in Alice in Borderland. They tease another spin-off for Borderlands, Alice in Borderlands in LA or in US. And it is so unnecessary. And this brings me down to what I was saying in the beginning, this knowing when to end, and also this consumerism. So I feel like they just should have wrapped it up at season 2. It was a perfect ending. It was good enough. It was a really cool series. And because of consumerism, not necessarily consumerism from the studios, but more, we need to kind of milk this cow a little bit more because people want to buy new stuff or need to buy new stuff. Let's do season 3. Let's do a spin-off of Alice in Borderland. Let's do a spin-off of Squid Game. And it is, you do feel, especially in Alice in Borderland 3, I feel like, I know there is a manga and I know that there probably are a lot of continuous mangas that kind of justify a season 3. But in terms of filmmaking and in terms of storytelling, I feel like season 2 wrapped it up. And this feels like, although the mangas exist, this still feels like, okay, it was so successful, people want this, or at least let's tell people that they need this. Let's force the story and make a season 3. Oh, we don't have the budget for 10 episodes. All right, let's do 6 and squeeze as much out of it as we possibly can. And yeah, I did not like that at all. And again, this brings me to this knowing when to stop and just knowing, okay, when a good thing is good enough and we don't need to kind of continue making another season. And this brings me to consumerism. We are so primed to buy more stuff, and I see this as well in YouTube, as I've been saying in a couple of I'm pivoting completely in a different direction right now. I'm pivoting towards YouTube, now, and minimalism maybe, consumerism, yes, where I said something along the lines that this channel isn't that successful. And there are many factors why this channel, or I'm with this second channel, not that successful. Because A, I'm rambling too much, I'm not editing, I'm leaving in mistakes, I intentionally don't want to make these videos perfect. But more importantly, I'm talking about stuff that isn't targeted towards I want to buy something. And I noticed that, for example, on my main channel, where I do a lot of reviews about bags, everyday carry and stuff like that, I do notice that the videos that are purely a review and maybe not about a product that is that much interesting, obviously people aren't watching that necessarily that much. But more importantly, if I do not a review, but an everyday carry video where I kind of list out all of the items that I carry with me, and subconsciously also that are videos where you are more in line of, okay, I can purchase this, and that. I mean, you see that as well in other everyday carry channels or unboxing channels. The products where you're more inclined to say, okay, let's buy this, those videos are the most successful on YouTube. Or camera reviews. Oh, I want to buy a new camera. Those videos are basically guaranteed to give you a lot of views. And this just underlines what I'm saying. Our society is so primed to wanting to buy new stuff, wanting to consume new stuff as much as possible. And sometimes it makes me sad. And don't get me wrong, I'm not blaming any one of you, because I'm the same. I like to buy stuff, and I try to consciously kind of prevent myself from getting new stuff. But it is definitely something that I noticed, and that was very apparent to me when I finished Alice in Borderland 3, because I just felt this is a cash grab. This doesn't need to exist, or if it needs to exist, they should have put in more work into this. But someone said, yeah, you have this budget, I want to milk this cow as much as possible, but I don't want to spend that much. Here you have some money, make season 3. Oh, you have no idea, don't care, make it as fast as possible. I want to milk that cow. And that's a shame. That kind of sucks. And it's the same thing with Star Wars. I was a huge Star Wars fan, but I went away from Star Wars because I just didn't like what has been out with all of the series, and I felt like that most of the time was also a cash grab. Yeah, anyways, I was rambling a lot. Let me know your thoughts about Alice in Borderland Season 3 in the comments below. Maybe check out my other review about a movie or series up here. YouTube thinks you like the video down here. And don't forget to subscribe by clicking the button up here. That helps a lot. Then we see each other tomorrow. Thank you very much.